which I think is now one of the most interesting questions in life. Let's start with the easy stuff. First, we are basically on the precipice of 3 phases of AI adoption. The first phase is what we'll call the enhanced application phase. The enhanced application phase is nice because it comports to the world we live in, and it's the one that we basically all understand today. If someone says to you you're using AI, what they're asking is, do you use an AI native app that you open on your phone or your device and close? Right? They're not asking the nuanced questions about how does AI sort of impact your life. Enhanced applications are great because they're basically just supercharging the work that we already do in a world that we already live in. ChatGPT is sort of the principal example, but they're not taking any advantage of what AI is capable of. The next phase is pretty interesting and starts to take a lot more advantage of AI, and that's the autonomous agent phase. I'm always curious in an audience like this, and I can sort of see you, the house lights are bright enough, who is familiar, at least, with the term agentic AI or autonomous agents? You can raise your hand. Good, yeah, it seems right. Well, cool. For the rest of you, I have exciting news. In the very near future, you will assign tasks and goals to AI, and it will execute those tasks and goals on your behalf. And that will take much more advantage of the actual potential of AI. It also will comport to the world that we live in, which is an app-based world. You will still download apps. You probably just won't work inside of them as much. Now, this presents all sorts of conflict, by the way, that people I don't think have started pricing or extrapolating, which is in a world where your agent is doing things on your behalf, are you actually just being disintermediated from all of your applications? At what point do you wake up and realize that something is actually choosing which applications to use on your behalf? And we'll talk about this later. And the autonomous agent phase or agentic AI phase will last for probably 5 or 6 years until we arrive at what is obviously coming at this point, which is the natural language operating system. And this one you have to squint a little at, but most people in this room have probably already processed this, which is the fact that in the next 15 years, in fact, Mark Zuckerberg thinks in the next 7, we will live in a world where our personal device is no longer the cell phone, where our personal device is a pair of glasses or a watch, and we will move towards a wearable world. But critically, that wearable world will also be defined by a new relationship between machines and humans. And I think it's best exemplified by this idea of the digital divide. I watch my mom, who's a very smart lady, she's a doctor, try to Google things. It's really sad. It's really sad. I shouldn't pick up my mom, she's not here, but she types full sentences into Google. And we know that's not how Google works. Google is a keyword search experience. And what's amazing is no one should blame my mom. She's interacting with the machine the way she would interact with any of us. And in the same way that I would never walk up to you and say, best restaurant in Vegas, open late. You would never actually ask Google, hey, where should we get some grub? We're pretty hungry. You know, what do you recommend? Well, what's amazing about ChatGPT, and I think the most fun experience that I had in watching that product come to life, was in watching the way that my mom interacted with it. I did not have to teach her anything. She could actually just talk to a machine for the first time ever, the way she talks to a human. It was the first glimpse I think we've had in a world where humans will interact with machines the way they interact with each other. And that's exciting because it clearly reduces the digital divide. It creates a world where we don't have to learn how to use these complex machines. They work with us. And this is the natural language operating system, and it probably arrives, I would guess, within the next 15 years. Now, the most important thing, and the thing that Drew touched on but didn't hit on enough in order for me to actually make this case, is this. And this is the crux of most of my arguments now in the research that we're doing, because this is the counter-narrative position. Most people think that AI is getting exceptionally expensive. And that's true on the basis of training these models. We talked about the scaling laws. These models are going to get exceptionally expensive to train. Who knows how much GPT-6 is going to cost? But they are getting very cheap to run. And inference, which is the process of actually running a model, is approaching near zero cost. And this is critically important for a lot of reasons. But the most important are, one, anytime historically we observe a critical resource decline in cost this quickly or this much, there's a Cambrian economic explosion. incredible things happen in the world when important resources get less expensive. This happened with water, this happened with foodstuffs, this happened with electricity, this is happening with the internet. The second reason this is important is because the more these models decline in cost, the less likely we are to pay some tax to a single model owner. And that goes to my ultimate thesis in this category, which is that the research actually commoditizes. That we live in a world where these models probably compress enough that they run locally on the device itself, and the research isn't actually the game-changing breakthrough. But for now, what you need to remember is that GPT-4 was $60 per million tokens when it came out. Today it's less than $4. In fact, I think it's a little less than $3.50. And this is so exciting from an access standpoint, from a distribution standpoint, but also in the avoidance of a technological hegemony. I mentioned it earlier, given all this, given what's happening, given what we're exploring, it's very clear to me at this point that we are entering this next renaissance. The first renaissance was basically marked by this massive improvement in human potential across, obviously, philosophy and economics, and politics, physical, right? Humans started running faster, lifting more weights. Commerce, we started moving more goods and services. We are entering a chapter where we will actually reimagine what it means to be human in all sorts of interesting ways, but it presents some obvious risks, and we should talk about them. Critically, the thing I think now that we should start paying closest attention to, and the thing that we are doing most of our research on, is this idea of a societal threshold and a technological threshold. And I think at this point it's safe to say that our future will be determined more by societal thresholds than a technological threshold.